Hello, Professor.
Yeah, man. How you doing? Oh no. Sorry, I sent you, I clicked the wrong button. I sent you to the waiting room. That was totally my mistake. I'm sorry about that. How are you?
Not much, kinda. Still terrible weeks. Or I was sick for 2 weeks, and with this common cold, I thought it's kinda this COVID-19. I had to do the test for
Yeah,
me, for my family,
yeah.
but luckily everybody is negative. It's just a common severe cold.
How do you feel now?
It's getting better. It's getting better.
Good,
I stopped coughing since yesterday.
good.
Severe cough and stuff.
Oh, I know. It's so scary. I've had friends too that got not with that, they got sick, but then they have to, then you wonder, is it COVID and all that stuff. So I'm glad that it's not that.
Yep.
And I'm glad you're feeling better.
How you doing? How is your mom?
She's okay. I saw her through the window again, but I saw her this weekend, so that was good. And I saw my brother and sort of still trying to make a plan. I don't know. I don't think she's going to be leaving because I don't know how much people know about the U.S. healthcare, right? But again, like she's not in a hospital, but it kind of is basically a
It's
hospital. Do you know
hospital,
what I mean?
yes.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know if they're going to think about moving her or if that'll change at the end of December. We're starting to think, okay, if she gets better, could she move and what would that mean? So, yeah, I mean, just one day at a time, Ahmad, we're trying.
I know.
Yeah. How's this point in the semester for you? I asked you because, I teach in the lab, um, and it was very quiet this week. I don't know if students are just tired or not around or they're busy or what's this point in the semester like for you?
I mean, I think it's similar to everybody at this time, especially for the past 2 weeks. It's not because I was sick. In
Yeah,
general, out in the society, the selection things, it's really affects people's mind, and too much going on outside, and that makes people sick in addition to the corona.
you're right about that. Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, it's crazy. Hey, Jay.
Hi, Professor.
Hey, Jay.
Hi. How are you guys? Are you
Okay.
watching the news?
Good, good.
I watched until about 8 o'clock, and then I turned my phone off, and I put the computer down, and I watched the Avengers and ate pizza because I was too anxious. And then still this morning, we're still waiting. Still lots to be
You're
anxious about.
close.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's so strange, you guys. It's so strange. I'm from California. California is just clearly so different than the rest of this country, and it's just so many people. America's a very big country, and I don't know, you guys. I don't know. I'm
Too
glad.
close then.
I agree. I'm glad we get to talk about poetry instead of politics today. I'll tell you that. But I know everybody. So I turned my phone on airplane mode, and this morning, then I have like 30 texts from my sister and brother and family and friends being like, Jeff, what's going on? Oh my God. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it live. It's too stressful. It's too stressful.
You want me to give you like the
I know
poems?
it looks good. It looks like Biden will win the
Yeah.
presidency, but if there's a Republican Senate, then nothing really is going to change. Nothing's going to happen. We're not going to do climate change. We're not, you know what I mean? Like it's just going to be more of the same. And this hasn't, I don't know, maybe it's great for other people. It's not that great for me. It's fine, but I mean, it's not that great.
I've actually heard from the news saying that if in case Trump loses, he's gonna have like a case to the Supreme Court, and like the Supreme Justice is his.
Yeah, yes, I agree. I saw that today. He wants to stop counting in states where he's winning, but recount the states where he's losing. Nothing surprises me anymore, you guys. Nothing surprises me anymore. Again, we know from history, we know from right now, all of our beautiful students from Ukraine, right? I mean, like, this is human history. I think Americans, we just aren't used to it happening in our country. You know what I mean? This is sadly normal in many places, you know.
actually weird, Professor, because like in my country, it's mostly just like the votes that counts, but here it's mostly like counties that counts.
I, yeah, I know. We talked about it last week a little bit too. The electoral colleges, hey Letty, is so strange and it's so bizarre. And I don't know. It's so hard because this morning I had to realize like it's just something I have no power over, you know? Oh, there goes my speaker. I have no control. I have no power over it. It's just humbling, very humbling. Hey, Osama. Hey, Fada. Hey. Oh, I see.
Hi, Professor.
Osama's in here twice. Natalia, Hung, how are you guys?
Yes, I will cancel one.
You can do whatever you want, Osama.
I was wait for a long time through the Converse link, but I didn't receive the email first, I guess. But I called one of the classmates, and also he told me check it again your email. Then I check again my email.
Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I wasn't sure if okay, good. Yeah, as long as it's working now. How are you guys, Osama, Fada? I'm talking to Ahmad and Jay a little bit. How are you guys doing?
Good. So nervous and busy with election result.
Yeah, I told Jay, I'll tell everybody when they get here again. I was watching until about 8 o'clock last night, and then I got too nervous and I turned my phone off and I just watched the Avengers. I watched distraction TV because it was clear we weren't going to know last night. So
it is the thing, the most important thing. There is a division in the American society.
Yeah.
A vertical division, 50-50. And the other side is ideology. They are not looking after their prosperity, their humanity, their moral value. They are looking after something else.
money and themselves. I think money and themselves.
Yes. They said that the president, a businessman. So we don't want any politician. We need business who can make money. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, ironically, Donald Trump is not a great businessman. He's a liar and a con man. I mean, like but that's true. That's the branding, right? Like, but his brand, the product he's selling is successful businessman, and enough people are buying the pitch. I was thinking about this. Even all of the anger, all the racism, all of the immigration stuff, all of the stuff that my life working with immigrants from all over the world. Okay, like let's say he was racist but competent. Okay, but he's not competent. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's just taking money and giving it to his own hotels, and everyone around him is indicted because they're corrupt. And yeah, I mean, I think it's almost the incompetence that makes me the most scared. But I don't know. It looks like, who knows? But it looks like he won't get to be president again. The country will still be very, very divided. That's for sure.
Yes, this is the most important thing. And the other side, the moral values and the human values is not the main issue to them. The radicalist religious or the other, the nationalist, like Nazis, radicalist, all this is with Trump. That,
yeah.
that
It's weird. It's really freaky. I don't know what to say. I hope it's going to be, I mean, we'll be okay and we'll do our best, but it is like you said about nationalism, it is interesting to look at this moment in American history and ask sort of what kind of country is this, and what is our national character, and all those things. And again, California is just so different. You know, California is like Biden by 20 points or something. So I live in I have my own specific experience, you know, so I don't know.
Yeah, yes, but that means there is a lot of work to do in the community, in the American community, how to change this.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to do that work either, Osama. I don't want to do it. It's too hard. You know, it's like I don't know, Osama, we got to read your beautiful paper. I know you know this better than anybody. The work of how do you take care of the people you love? How do you take care of individual people? But then you also go, well, at a big picture level, like when it comes to a government, a whole country, what sometimes it's like the best thing to do, the safest thing to do is to take care of yourself and take care of your family. And that's hard. I know you guys know that way better than anybody. So
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But like I said to everybody, I'm glad we get to talk about poetry instead of politics today.
But you put very difficult question in the quiz. How to write the article and how to evaluate the translation.
Oh, well, we should.
So, lot of thought. Yes.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it. So I'm going to start to share my screen. We're going to do some work in groups. So I'm not going to put you in groups right now at the beginning, but of course, I'm going to put you in small groups. So you'll get to talk to each other. You can talk to each other about whatever you want, like usual. But here's some of the stuff that I did want to share. So today is Wednesday, November 4th, waiting day, election, the day after the election, waiting to know what's going to happen. Oh my God. But here's our agenda. We're going to talk about poetry. I have some announcements, so I could put that in here too. We're going to talk about poetry, and we're going to talk about lines and stanzas. We're going to talk about, actually, I've changed this. We're going to talk about simile and metaphor, sounds, simile and metaphor. There we go. And then we're going to talk about the poetry project, because I want to talk about this at the end of class, but I'm just sort of thinking about, okay, we have 5 more weeks left. How much can we do? How much can we not do? How much more work are you able to do? How much more work do we want to do? So I want to check in with you guys about some of those things, but I do want to talk about what I want you to do with poetry. So here are my announcements. So remember, or maybe you don't know, but next Wednesday, this is true for all classes, not just our class. Next Wednesday, November 11th, is a federal holiday. There's no class, no nothing for ARC. So that means we have no Zoom meeting that Wednesday. Okay. So again, and that should be, like I said, for all of your classes. So Wednesday, November 11th, that is Veterans Day. That is a federal holiday, no Zoom class. Then, so again, I still am behind in grading, but I did take a little peek at the midterms and read what you guys wrote about Say It With Noodles, and I loved it. It seems like you enjoyed the story, and the things that you had to write were making me very happy. So that was really great. But the reason that I am still in grading hell, in a grading nightmare, is because I am basically done creating course content now. So videos are published in Canvas for the River Speaks chapter 2, 3, and 5. And we are definitely going to read The Lathe of Heaven. And I have audio for the entire book now fully published in Canvas. So I want to show you where that lives. Just like always, you probably know this, but I'll show you again. So if you go to course materials, so again, just like usual, The River Speaks, the poetry book, there's chapter 1 and video was already there, but there's the video for chapter 2, video for chapter 3, and YouTube video for chapter 5. All of that is posted, where again, I read through the chapter, read through the poems, and give you some more information and context as we're reading. The poems for today are here on this page as well. I can put this in the chat, but also I now have a page specifically for The Lathe of Heaven. That's this book. It's short. That's this book. So this will probably be the last thing that we get to do in the class. I don't think we're going to have time for the play, unfortunately. But if you click The Lathe of, that's it, Osama. If you click The Lathe of Heaven, you'll see here, chapter 1, it's an 11 chapter book. So all of the audio recording, I didn't do videos. It's just like I did for Why Translation Matters. So my audio recording for the entire book is on this page, The Lathe of Heaven. So again, River Speaks, chapter 1, 2, 3, and 5 YouTube videos are posted, and audio for The Lathe of Heaven is here in Canvas. Any questions about this stuff? I just wanted to show you that this is here.
So Professor,
I have a
we
question.
have,
Okay, Fada, I heard Fada and then Hiroe. Fada, please.
so so we have access to this material either after this course or until we have the Zoom
Yes.
IDs or like this.
No, you should, I can get more information about that. So there's two things. One, the teacher can control that and the school can control that. Okay, so for me, I won't close the course. I won't close the course so that you can't access it. Usually ARC keeps the Canvas sites open or published for at least a year. One thing you can't do, you know what, Fada, you're reminding me, like if you wanted to, so two things. The YouTube videos you can find always on my YouTube channel, right? They're in YouTube, okay? The audio recordings, like for Why Translation Matters and for The Lathe of Heaven, those are MP3s that I've recorded and they are in Canvas. I should be able, let me make a video or instructions, not right now, to show you how to download all the files that are from this class. I won't do that now because it'll take too long, but I'll show you how to do that before the end of the semester.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, thank you.
Because that is part of my goal, Fada, and thank you for asking, is I spent a lot of time making this stuff because that is my dream, kind of, is, you know, this online thing is, some things are great and some things are not great. But one, I think, great thing is trying to create stuff for you to have and play with after the class is over. It does feel hard to talk about as much as we would get to talk about in a live meeting. But I think I have this dream of like making like a sandbox for you guys, and you guys go into the sandbox and pick up stuff out of the sandbox and play with it at the time that's best for you and how you like to do it. So I'll sort of make an explanation for how to download the files, Fada.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yes, Hiroe, what's up?
Quick question. The River Speaks. I see you uploaded more sound files or video files. Do we still need to listen to it, even if we, for the people that finished all assignments?
No, if you feel comfortable and confident with the content from the readings, like if you read the PDFs and you feel like you get that stuff, that's great. You don't need to, you know, you don't really need to do anything. I will say that the stuff that I'm going to emphasize today, the content that I'm going to emphasize today is going to be what I ask you to do for the next discussion activity and for the poetry project. So if any of those concepts are unclear, I'd say maybe just watch those minutes in the video, because I do give more detail and information and examples about some of those things, like assonance and consonance and alliteration and some of the things we're going to talk about today.
So, okay, that means we will need the contents for the future assignment or discussion board. So
Yeah.
this was maybe my question.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. You will. Yeah. Yes. Good question. Thank you. Anybody else? Questions about the announcements before we jump in? Cool. So, but Hiroe's great question is exactly correct, which is what I'm going to talk about today and emphasize from the poetry is really all I want you to sort of be accountable for, if that makes sense, Hiroe. So if you read all the chapters, it's not like you need to understand every idea on every page. I'm sort of, the things I'm going to choose to talk about today are the things that are most important for lesson 18 and for the project. So that's what I've got for us today. All right. So I want to say just a little bit about rhyme and meter, just a comment about rhyme and meter, right? So I'm not really going to ask you for lesson 18 and for the poetry project, the next sort of thing I'm going to have you write. I do want you to analyze poetry, and if you want to analyze the rhythm and the rhyme and the meter, please feel free to do that. But I think I was thinking about this weekend. I think that's a bit complicated and complex. So if those things are interesting to you, I strongly encourage you to review the River Speaks chapter 5, watch the video that I made exploring some of those concepts in more detail. Also, you can go back and watch last week's PowerPoint and video recording where I talked a little bit about rhyme, meter, blank verse, and some of those things using the 3 example poems. But I don't want you to spend stress too much about it. So rhyme and meter, not going to be something that you need to write about for a grade, but if you want more information about it, I strongly encourage you to look at the River Speaks chapter 5 and just review some of the things that we talked about last week. Okay. So any questions about rhyme and meter or anything? Did you think about anything or notice anything about this in the last week? Because I'm not going to talk too much more about it, but any last questions about rhyme, rhythm, meter? Love it. So the most important thing there, I'll say one last time, is stressed and unstressed syllables, right? If the only thing you remember from this class is rhyme and rhythm mean stressed and unstressed syllables, that's a great start, right? So the difference between, yeah, anyway, you already know what I'm talking about. Bye-bye. Okay. So now in most of what I'm going to talk about today is from the River Speaks chapter 5, okay? But it's not specifically about rhyme and meter. So there are some key words that I'm going to talk about today, and then we're going to look at some of the examples in the poems to figure out what these things mean, and then we'll start to play with it. So there are 4 things that go along with poetry that I really want you to be aware of in terms of structure, right? So the 4 sort of most important elements of the structure of a poem are here. That's line, caesura, enjambment, and, ooh, my mistake, and stanzas. So brief definitions for what these are, and then we'll look at an example. So a line of poetry is just that, a single line. Poets can choose to break the lines in different ways in order to create a specific feeling, meaning, or a sound in the poem. So if we look at the next page, right, just this, the leaves fall as from far, that's a line, right? So wherever the line starts and stops, that's one line. Like distant gardens withered in the heavens, that's another line. So that's all I mean by line. Now, when you're thinking about lines in poetry and how they flow or connect together, you also want to be aware of this thing called a caesura. So a caesura is a natural pause in a poem. Caesura is just, again, a sort of literary way to say pause or a break. Now, the poem may create a caesura through the organization of stress or unstressed syllables. So the way that the rhythm and the meter flow can create a sort of natural pause. Or, of course, the other way that poets do this is through punctuation. And again, you've seen this in some of the examples. We're going to look at this poem here. But of course, you see comma, comma, semicolon, period, right? So poets absolutely are using punctuation to give you information about where to pause, right? And a little bit how long to pause as well. Usama, did I see a hand?
I would like to ask about the line. The line only it is it means physically, it is not related with the punctuation.
Yes, correct. The line is just the line, and I don't want to sound too simplistic, but the line is just the line, right? So I'll show you guys this. So how many lines are in this poem? Without even reading the poem out loud, how many lines are in this poem? Letty.
3.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. How many lines are in the whole poem?
3, 5, 9.
Yeah, good. I heard Jay, I think, too, as well. Yes. So that's all it is, Usama. The line is where.
But I had
oh, please, Letty. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Good,
when we can see capital letters, what are we using? What does mean? We have capital letter in one line, and we have capital letters in maybe 3 or 4 words. In
like here, like all of these lines begin with a capital letter. Is that what you're asking here, Letty?
Yes.
Or also earth, solitude, one, his, yeah. Let's talk about this when we're analyzing this poem a little bit. But okay. the real answer with capitalization, Letty, is that is the poet. You have the power. Do you know what I mean? Like you can, poets have a lot of freedom to choose what words they capitalize. What, you know, of course, you see something like this in this poem. And in the nights, the heavy earth too falls. Okay, earth is a proper noun. So maybe you would capitalize earth like you'd capitalize a first name or the first name of a country or something, right? But of course, this word, solitude, is not really a proper noun, but the poet chose to capitalize it. Now, like if you read chapter 1, or if you watch the video for chapter 1 of The River Speaks, you know that the way I like to talk about poetry is basically, you know, why do you think he did that? This is a male poet. What does that do for you when you read it? Does it make you, how does that make you feel about this word? How does it affect the way you feel about the poem? I think that's the most important thing I want us to do in this class. Instead of feeling like what's right or wrong or good or bad or what does it mean, it's more like when you see a poet do that, what effect does it have on you? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So lines, just the number of lines in a page. Caesura is just a pause. Caesura is a fancy way of saying pause. And usually we're going to look at examples where that's done with punctuation, commas, periods, semicolons, etc. Now, I'm going to skip enjambment for a second and talk about stanza. So a stanza is a group of lines separated by blank space from other lines and stanzas. Like lines, poets can choose to create stanzas in order to create a specific feeling, meaning, or sound in a poem. So a line is just a line, and a stanza is a group of lines separated by blank page. So how many stanzas in this poem?
3.
Usama says 3. Jay says 3. It's 3. It's 3, however you do it. 3, whatever way you want to do it. 3. Yeah, 3 stanzas in this poem. Great. And the last thing to talk about is enjambment, very specific term. This means when a poet chooses to end a line or stanza mid-sentence. That means the poet has the logical meaning of the sentence continue into the next line or stanza without a pause. So let's look at an example of this here in this poem. This poem is called Autumn by Rainer Maria Rilke. Rilke is a German poet, so you are reading a translation of the poem here. But in this poem, we get autumn. And let's see if we can, well, there is an example of enjambment, so we'll look at this a few times. I'll read through the poem and tell me if you can see where enjambment happens. Remember, enjambment means the line ends before the sentence does. That's what enjambment is. So autumn. The leaves fall as from far, like distant gardens withered in the heavens. They fall with slow and lingering descent. And in the nights, the heavy earth too falls, from out the stars into the solitude. Thus all doth fall. This hand of mine must fall, and lo, the other one, it is the law. But there is one who holds this falling infinitely softly in his hands. Enjambment. Do we see enjambment?
Yes, I think it's in the second and third stanzas.
Good. Tell me, Ahmad, tell me the word where the enjambment starts.
Okay, in the second stanzas, I think the falls.
Good.
And it comes in, and the third one again, the fall.
Good. And there's a which fall? This hand of mine or who holds?
This hand of mine.
Good.
Fall, and I think there is one more falling.
Yes. Good. And again, notice something in this poem. All of the enjambment happens with the same word, fall, falling. Now, again, I'm not telling you what that means, but what you hopefully know by now from how we've talked about poetry, what you've read in The River Speaks is this is not an accident, right? So instead of thinking, is this right? Is this wrong? Whatever. I think it's just the way I really want to talk about poetry for the next week or two is what do you think? Like, what does that do to you? What do you notice? How does that affect you when the enjambment happens? And then when the enjambment happens with the same word, because exactly as Ahmad said, falls from, well, in this case, Rilke and the translator have put a break in the line after falls. And here, this hand of mine must fall and lo, well, fall and then a break before and. But there is one who holds this falling infinitely softly, falling enjambment, break at the end of the line. So This tiny poem we're going to look at and analyze here, but line is just a line. Caesura is a pause in the poem, usually from poetry, usually from punctuation. Enjambment is when the line ends before the sentence does. And a stanza is a group of lines separated by blank space from other lines and other stanzas. Do those four, does this make sense, these terms? Any questions about them?
Professor, can I ask a question?
Of course.
In some poems, we see only one word as a line. Is this still considered as a line?
Yes, Ahmad, great question. If it's a line is a line, whether it's one word or 20 words or whatever, yes, if a poet has one word on the line, that's the line.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I don't remember if there was a line like that in Walt Whitman, but thinking about blank verse and Whitman, like we talked about last week, you absolutely can see one word as a line or very, very short lines in blank verse poems, because those poets they don't feel like they're having to keep a specific rhythm or meter, right? So it's easier to just throw one or two words in a line and let the poem keep rolling like that. Make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Any other questions about lines, caesuras, stanzas, enjambment? Letty, what's up?
Which is the better way to recognize when we have enjambment? Is it really? I have really hard time to define it when it's
Well, we're gonna look at a bunch of examples today. I think just practice. Again, I'd say one more time, enjambment is when the line ends before the sentence ends. Does that make sense, Letty?
yes.
Right. So and in the nights the heavy earth too falls. It's not falls period, it's falls from out the stars. So here, this sentence, the meaning of this sentence keeps going, right? Letty, this is one sentence, right?
Yes.
But the poet chose to make a break, chose to make a line break in the middle of this sentence, and that's all enjambment is. That's all it is. Cool. Yes, Jay.
So, Professor, like on the assignment that you gave us, you mentioned like 12 lines, right?
Oh yeah.
Is it possible to do a lot of enchantments in that one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So Jay's talking about the poetry project. I'll talk about that at the end of class. But if you know, in the poetry project, I'm going to give you the chance to write your own poems if you want to, but I'm not going to make you do that. But if you want to try writing your own poems, or do practice writing your own poems, yeah, you can do it. You can do whatever you want to.
Do we have to rhyme it, or can we do free write?
You can do whatever you want. We're going to talk about the project at the end, but really, if you choose to write poems for a grade in this class, you can do whatever the hell you want, Jay. Okay, so then I think we're good with these ideas. So I do want to put us into groups now here. So I'm going to put a few things into the chat. Give me a second. I'm going to zoom out here. So first thing I'm going to put into the chat is the poem, because I'm going to ask you to look at this poem as well. I'm going to just be silent while I do this. Usually I'm talking to myself. Okay, there's the poem. And then I'm also going to oops. I agree, Letty. And I'm also going to put the instructions for this activity that I want you to do here into the chat. And the thing I really want to emphasize here is okay, cool. So you can download those images, those files from the chat. But here's what I really want you to do. Remember, what I want us to do for this class, since we only have a few weeks with poetry, is instead of feeling like understanding it or being an like understanding exactly what the poet meant and the history of the poems is. I really want you to read a poem, be able to read a poem, have a reaction to it, have a response to it, and then be able to look at some of the elements in the poem to understand why you feel the way you do. That's my #1 goal for poetry for this class, okay? So that's kind of what I'm asking you to do here. So I'm going to put you into groups. Maybe we'll just do 2 groups. I want you to analyze this poem. For any examples of caesareas and enjambment, we kind of did that a little bit together, but you can keep talking about the enjambment. Why did they choose to have the line break at the word fall? What's going on there? And then I'd really like you to analyze the lines and the stanzas of the poem and think about, why do you think Rilke and the translator broke the lines where they did? What do you think about the organization of the stanzas? Because remember, if you read chapter 1 of The River Speaks, the idea here is that poets are making choices about how they group words and group lines together. So yeah, a line, each specific line may have a theme, right? That theme might be a specific meaning that the poet wants you to understand. That line might have a specific series of sounds that the poet is playing with. And then the poet can choose to group lines together into stanzas. And again, Professor Noor says this in the book, but if you think about stanzas like paragraphs, you know, you're not very far off. A paragraph is a group of connected ideas, and a stanza should feel connected. There should be some central image, some central metaphor, some central sound, some central meaning, something for why the poet chose to put those lines into a group, right? Into a stanza. So really what I want you to do is just look at this short little poem and start to talk about those questions together, right? What is the effect of putting these lines the way that the poet did? What is the effect of putting these lines together into stanzas the way that they did? And how do all of those choices affect your understanding, your feeling towards the poem? Does that make sense, what I want you to do?
Yes.
So I'd say this again, with poetry, a lot of people overthink it. Don't overthink it. There's not a right answer here. All I want you to do is start to, like I said, start with, how does it feel? How do you feel when you read the poem? And then start to ask yourself why, and point to a word or point to a stanza or point to a line break or point to something for practicing why the poem did what it did to you. Make sense? Any questions before you go to groups?
No.
Cool. I'm going to put you into groups, 2 groups, and I'll give you at least 5 minutes or so on your own. I am going to come check in on each group, but I'll give you a few minutes by yourself, and then I'll come say hi to each group. Then we'll come back and we'll start to talk about, you know, sounds, the sounds of poetry. Cool. All right, let me open the breakout rooms. All right, 2 rooms. Open now. Welcome back.
Well, yeah, I'm hungry.
You're hungry?
Yes.
Go get some food. We got an hour left. Letty, go get a snack. What are you doing?
Oh,
Well,
Professor Jaffe, I thought we may not bring anything to eat in the class.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Every class I have coffee.
This is liquid, so that's fine.
If you eat, and we should have talked about this, and this will remind me to talk about it in the spring. If you eat, just turn off your video. I don't know what you're doing.
Oh, that is a good idea. You bring us an idea.
you know what? My granddaughter, she put her computer and she fell asleep.
I was gonna say, Letty, am I gonna want to hear this story or not?
And my grandson get into her room and say, "Mommy, Janetta, she's sleeping."
Anyway, Professor Jeff, you brought you put me into the different group after I was kicked out, but it was all good. Thank you.
Okay,
again.
good. Thank you. I was thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Cool. Well, welcome back. Let's talk about, I got to talk to each group. I think I loved this. I love poetry for so many reasons, but one is each group was talking about totally different things, which I love. I think that's really, really wonderful. But we're going to talk about sounds next, but as a group, in the big group, I do want to talk briefly about structure, especially about the stanzas. What'd you guys talk about? What'd you notice? Anything you can talk about from lines, stanzas, enjambment, etc.
Oh, ritmo, rima. Rima is really easy in Spanish.
Tell me.
But it's hard in English.
Yeah. So which one is rhythm?
Yeah. Rima.
Rhyme. Yeah. So I already told the other group, we're going to look at a poem today that's very musical, that's very, very rhymey. We'll get rhymes in a second when we talk about sounds. But again, even without rhyme, the structure is very important. And I said this to Ahmad and Fada's group. Poems that rhyme. Actually, we can do this. This is fine. I'm going to use a really simple example. English. So think about even English nursery rhymes, right? Things that are really for children that always rhyme. There was an old woman. Okay, this is good. This is fine. Even in a simplistic poem. Again, you're not children. This is why we don't do children's poems in this class. But here's a classic. This is a classic American English fairy tale or children's nursery rhyme. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and whipped them all soundly and put them to bed. Right?
I love this.
Everyone, people are smiling. They're like, oh yeah, this sounds like poem. This is a poem. Yeah. Yes. Right. And that's fine. But even notice this in the structure of the poem, you guys. I'm telling you, even here, line and stanza matter. This stanza doesn't matter. This is one short poem. It's all one stanza. But look where they break the rhyme. Shoe, do, broth. Shoe, do, bread, bed. Right? In this case, for poems that rhyme, the line still really matters because it helps to create the rhythm and the rhyme scheme that the poet wants here, right? So even without rhyme, I think actually it's almost easier to look at stanza and line without rhyme, because when we see a poem that rhymes, our brain goes right to the rhyme. We love the sound, we love the rhythm, it's all very musical. We don't tend to think about stanza and line when the poems rhyme. And again, like I told you, we're going to look at, if you guys have looked at the poems, we're going to look at this poem here in a second. So here you can see again, this is the English poem we're going to look at today. It's totally rhyming and musical, and yet, we get numbers, dream, slumber, seem, right? A, B, earnest, goal, returnest, soul, right? But they're still choosing to break the lines up here and choosing and making choices about the stanzas. So even if you're like, Jeff, I want that rhyming poem, we're going to go there. But I do want you to understand that line and stanza are important. okay? So to that point, there are 3 stanzas in this poem, right? And if you look at this poem, even if you're like, oh my God, why is Jeff having us read this translated German poetry? Oh my God. I promise you can do this. There's a word in this poem that is repeated like many, many times. What is that word? Thank you.
Fall.
Fall, right? So this poem, fall, 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 fall. So in the first stanza, the structure of this non-rhyming translated poem, the leaves fall, fall as from far, like distant gardens withered in the heavens. They fall with slow and lingering descent. What is falling in the first stanza?
Leaves.
Leaves.
Ahmad is saying leaves. Osama is saying leaves. Group 2, you agree? Leaves? The leaves fall, right? This first stanza is about falling leaves. And then we get all this beautiful poetic language about how they fall and where they fall. And we get all these strong feelings, right? Now in the second stanza, we get, and in the nights, the heavy earth too falls from out the stars into the solitude. So this second stanza is about what? What is falling in the second stanza?
Earth.
The planet Earth, right? So in the first stanza, we get this idea of leaves falling. Okay, interesting. In the second stanza, we get this idea of a whole planet falling, right? And in the first lines of the last stanza, we get, thus all doth fall. This hand of mine must fall, and lo, the other one. It is the law. So here, what's falling in these lines?
Life.
Everything.
Life. Hiro is saying life, everything. That's exactly what the other group was saying too, right? Then, so we get, again, if you think about the structure of the poem, grouping images, grouping lines together to create some meaning, we get leaves falling. Okay, that's nice. We get a planet falling. Wow, that's a lot bigger than a leaf. And then we get everything, all life, my hand, your hand, everything must fall. Wow, okay, like that's, you know, that's quite an escalation. Of course, ironically, as you're reading down the poem, it's going downward, but it's like, okay, leaf, planet, everything. Then we get this very small but very powerful word here, but, where the poet is going to shift something or change something. And we see, but there is one who holds this falling infinitely softly in his hands. So we get falling, stanza 1, falling, stanza 2, falling at the beginning of stanza 3, and then we get but holding. So what's going on? And this is not a right or wrong answer, but this is a choice the poet is making here in terms of how they group the stanzas. And I think it has an impact on us as the reader. What does that do for you? Like, how does that affect you? What do you notice? What do you think about this?
As my understanding, the intention here to give the hope to the reader, the last 2 lines.
Love it. So Ahmad is saying the last lines ends with some hope. After everything must fall, we get some hope. Okay, great. What else?
I thought everything opposite of death. Like what Ahmed said, like hope, right? I thought like love, soul, spirit.
Love it. Great. I love it. Ahmad and Hiroe are already talking about sort of what the, so I described the structure of the poem. And then what Ahmad and Hiroe did there is describe how the structure affected them. Like Ahmad was saying at the end, I felt like the last 2 lines make me feel hopeful, or Hiroe is saying it makes me think of hope and love and some of these other feelings, right? So, I'm saying that's not a mistake, right? Like, so even that's connected to the structure of the poem, right? So again, I don't ask you to be able to do this for every poem you read, but I do ask you to start to just see a little bit around the corner of how structure is going to impact how you feel about the poem, even if it doesn't rhyme. Usama, I see your hand. What's up?
Yes, I think the translator or the author want us to think about the life, about the circle of life, reconsider the things again. They want us to rethink about the life. Because the life is like this, as he described in his fourth slide stanza. So it is like announcement to rethink and start again with new thoughts.
Love it. Love it. So again, I love it. I love what Usama said. I love what Ahmad and Hiraway said. The only thing I want to just say one more time is when you start to, write about, when you say, oh, this poem is about this, or it made me think that, all of that is beautiful. What I want you to be able to do then is to say, for example, on this line, when the author does this, or in this stanza, the author says this, and just to connect that feeling, the response you're having to some of these elements, right? And maybe we're going to talk about sounds next. Maybe you're like, oh my God, lines and stanzas, Jeff, I hate it. I want to talk about sounds. That's fine. But I want you to be able to start to make a connection between how the poem makes you feel and think and the structure of the poem. That's all I'm talking about. That's all I'm talking about. Any other thoughts about lines and stanzas before we talk about sounds, which are much more fun usually? Ahmad, yes.
I want to add something. I'm not a poet or something, but the way it's translated, I'm not sure compared to the original one.
Yeah.
This turnover at the third stanza, it could be another stanza, but it really kind of, it's created really in tricky way. They kind of fit that last part in the same stanza.
Love it.
If it starts with the word bad, there is one holds the falling. That's the part, as my understanding. I have seen some poems that these turnovers are completely separate stanzas.
I love that. I love Ahmad is saying, well, listening to Ahmad made me think, okay, what if there were 4 stanzas in this poem and there was a new stanza that started with the word but? How would that change our feeling about the poem? Great question. And then I was also thinking, okay, well, it's interesting because there's 3 lines in the first stanza, 2 lines in the second stanza, and 4 lines in the last stanza. So in a certain way, the last stanza is like the heaviest stanza. It has the most lines, and ironically, sort of at the end, it has this idea of like, okay, well, everything's going to fall, but at the same time, there is someone, some great spirit holding everything. So there's this contrast almost between the heaviness of the stanza because it's the biggest, but this moment of hope at the end of the poem, or belief or faith in God. Love it, Ahmad. Fantastic. Hiroe, I see your hand. What's up?
Yes, I've changed my mind.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell us why.
So the last one, what Ahmed said was like a little bit brought me to think something else. Maybe she's hoping, although she knows that everything is like almost destiny, it is what it is. However, she maybe hopes that at least maybe she could hold one life or one thing that does not it does work against the rule.
I love it. So what if the one here, but there is one, what if the one was the poet themselves, or
leave,
yeah.
Even leave is for her, it symbolizes maybe the life.
Love it.
So everything goes away, I know, but maybe I can keep it at least one or some in my hand, like the leaf does.
Gorgeous. I love it. Great. That makes sense. I love it. Perfect. I love it. Hiroe's already changed her interpretation of the poem twice during this class. That's a good sign. That's a very good sign. Anybody else about lines and stanzas before we go to sounds? Jay, you unmuted. Did you want to talk?
I was just going to ask, is there a rule for how many lines in a stanza?
For the poems that I'm going to ask you to read, and if you choose to write a poem, no. Now, if you in a poetry class, if we spent 15 weeks talking about poetry and we studied different structure and rhyme scheme and all that stuff, there are lots of poems. For example, the sonnet, I can put a link to this in case anybody cares, just as an example. But, Shakespeare, again, people, English, people who speak English love to talk about Shakespeare. Most of Shakespeare's writing was in sonnets, and most of those sonnets are poetry, and those poetry has very specific rules about how many syllables in a line, how many lines in a poem, the rhyme structure. I mean, different types of poetry have very specific and strict rules, all the way over to, Walt Whitman in America being like, JK, no rules, no rhyme, doesn't matter, do whatever you want. So, there's lots of options. But for us in this class, I'm not going to ask you to look at, analyze, or write anything that has very specific rules. That's not how we'll do it in this class. Okay, let's talk about sound. I'm glad people, I'm good. Okay, good. You guys are kind of warming up. I promise you'll get a rhyming poem soon. It's going to be better. Hold on. In the chat, I just put an example of what a sonnet is. So Jay, if you wanted to see an example of poems with very strict rules, or anybody wants to see, you could take a look at that. So let's talk sounds. Usually easier for people to hear and talk about. So there are three sort of aspects of poetic sound that I am going to talk about. Again, all of them are in The River Speaks. So if you haven't read it or you want more details, go there and watch my video about it. So the three that I really want to talk about and focus on are called alliteration, consonance, and assonance. Alliteration is just the repetition of constant sounds, usually at the beginning of words, but not always. Excuse me. So for example, a fierce friend is a friend for life, right? All these sounds, especially at the beginning of words. Fierce friend, friend for life. Or many majestic mysteries may move us. Strong M alliteration at the beginning of words. And just so that you guys can see that this is not just in English, of course, this is in any language. This is a Spanish line, y si no sombra, sino sangre. You get these S sounds at the beginning of the words for alliteration, right? Alliteration. Then we have consonance. Consonance is the repetition of consonant sounds in closely placed words. Now here, unlike alliteration, which usually is at the beginning of words, consonance and assonance can happen in the beginning of a word or sort of at different syllable stresses in different words. So consonance, again, repetition of consonant sounds. This is something like soon the wound was unwound and high noon was drawn in. Now notice soon and wound do rhyme. They have the same vowel sound, but wound and drawn do not. So we have different vowel sounds, but we have the same consonant sound, right? This is on, in. So just so you hear the vowel sounds, un, aun, on, in. So again, what they're sharing there is the consonant sound, not the vowel sound. Does that make sense? Usama's nodding, Jay is nodding. Just want to make sure this is clear. Okay, cool. And I'll do that one more time. I know it sounds weird, but just so you can hear the difference, that it's the consonant, not the vowel. This is aun, on, in. Or she'll wrap the hill in fallen silk until the last leaf falls. Right? L, the L sound here. And finally, flip and topple and ripple and wobble, the top flopped down, then up, right? So these are all examples of consonants, repeated consonant sounds that could be at the end or in the middle of words, but might not have the same vowel sounds near them. Make sense?
Sounds like a tongue twister.
Usama, questions? I can't hear you. No sound. You're not muted, but I can't hear you.
What I recognize that the consonants should be the same letter, N or L or P. It should
and
be.
It could be any consonant, Usama. These are just examples, right? It could be a T or a D or a B. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But yes,
it should be the same letter.
Exactly. And in poetry, you'll start to find it's not even about the letter, really. It's about the sound. So consonants means the same consonant sounds in a line or in a stanza or anything like that. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And the last one is assonance. So consonance is about similar consonant sounds. Assonance is about repetition of the vowel sounds in words. Now, this might produce full rhymes or it might produce slant rhymes. So for example, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plains. A, right? But we get ain. In this case, we get pure rhymes. We get the same vowel sound and the same consonant after it.
My fair lady.
My fair lady was something, exactly. My fair lady. Then we get, so that's that A vowel sound. That's a diphthong, actually, A. But we get things like, we light a fire on the mountain and lie still under cold sky. So lie, fi, lie, sky. Notice here, like Usama was saying about spelling, with vowel sounds, you know, in English, you can't always count on the spelling to help you. That's why it sounds not just the letters, right? So again, light, fire, lie, sky. Now, light and fire do not rhyme, right? Light and fire don't rhyme, but they do have the same vowel sound, lie, fi.
I.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And last one, fleet feet sweep by sleeping streets. Again, these words don't all rhyme, but this, for example, fleet and sweep. Remember we were talking about Emily Dickinson, tell the truth, but tell it slant. And I was talking about slant rhymes. Fleet and sweep is a great example of a slant rhyme. Those two words don't rhyme, but the vowel sound is the same. And vowels are so powerful, especially in English, but really in all languages. Vowel sounds are so powerful that the brain sort of imagines that fleet and sweep rhyme almost, right? So it's not a full rhyme, but it's kind of a slant rhyme because they have that same strong assonance, that same strong vowel sound shared together. Make sense? So alliteration. First sound of each word is the same. Fierce friend, many majestic mysteries, sino sombra, sino sangre, right? Consonants, when consonant sounds are the same, but the vowel sounds might change, un, aun, in, on. And assonants, where the vowel sounds are the same, even if the consonants aren't the same and the words don't fully rhyme. Fleet feet sweep by sleeping streets. That's it. That's the only stuff about sounds that I want you to know from this class. And it's plenty. It's more than enough to start to analyze the sounds in any given poem. Questions about these three things before we practice? Cool.
We will try ourselves.
Oh, I want to do this actually. Say what, Usama?
We will try ourselves.
I was going to say, so let's do this. I'm going to put this same poem back up here. We're going to go to the rhyming poem after this. But I'll read the poem a few times. And all I want you to do is think about alliteration, consonants, and assonants. I'm going to read this three times. And really, I want you to find examples of alliteration, consonants, and assonants in this poem. I promise you they're there. Cool? Okay. I'm going to read through three times. Just focus on finding those three things. Ooh, my bad. I want to make sure this is clear. Oh, I have an idea. Hold on. Bear with me 1 second. Great. So imagine we're going to kind of fill in this chart after I read through it a few times, okay? So, autumn. The leaves fall as from far, like distant gardens withered in the heavens. They fall with slow and lingering descent. And in the nights, the heavy earth too falls from out the stars into the solitude. Thus all doth fall. This hand of mine must fall, and lo, the other one, it is the law. But there is one who holds this falling infinitely softly in his hands. The leaves fall as from far, like distant gardens withered in the heavens. They fall with slow and lingering descent. And in the nights, the heavy earth too falls from out the stars into the solitude. Thus all doth fall. This hand of mine must fall, and lo, the other one, it is the law. But there is one who holds this falling infinitely softly in his hands. Last one. The leaves fall fall as from far, like distant gardens withered in the heavens. They fall with slow and lingering descent. And in the nights, the heavy earth too falls from out the stars into the solitude. Thus all doth fall. This hand of mine must fall, and lo, the other one, it is the law. But there is one who holds this falling infinitely softly in his hands.
The alteration is
Tell me.
F.
Yep, where? Give me, let's go for it. Yep. Oh,
Fall,
let me.
fall.
So in the first one, fall.
The F.
Far.
From.
Great. Love it. What else?
Also from.
Yeah, go for it, Jay.
Oh no, like on the alliteration, like from.
Good. Oh yes, first line. Fall, as from far. Love it. Fantastic. Yes, in the first line, we get fall from far. Exactly. Good. What else?
Gardens and heavens.
Ooh, good. What's that one?
The second line.
Mhm.
Oh, that one.
Assonance? Assonance?
Which one was it? Assonance?
Yeah, we kind of get both. We get, it's kind of a little slant rhyme because it doesn't really rhyme, but we get heavens, we get kind of an assonant sound and an end sound there, right? So good. I like that. Heavens, descent. Good. And maybe kind of both. Again, I love it. Good. What else?
I am not sure. I'm sorry. The third one, is it still count as like a rhyming fall and slow?
Fa, slow.
No. Okay.
That's not the same vowel sound, at least for my California accent. They fall,
okay.
they fall with slow. They fall with slow.
Oh yeah, that's different. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Good.
infinitely softly.
Consonants or assonants?
Assonance.
I agree. Really just this E sound, right? Softly, infinitely softly. Good. I noticed the last line also, his hands. Oh, it's so tiny.
I have one too.
Yeah, tell me.
Low and law. Or is it Asian accent?
No. Which line is it? Which line is it here? I don't think it's Asian accent. No.
Okay, it's third from the bottom. And law and ending. It is the law.
Low and law. Consonants or assonants?
Consonants?
Yeah, and kind of alliteration there too. Jay is correct because it's starting at the beginning, so I love that. We could say that's the set line 7. Low, law, absolutely. Same vowel, same consonant sound, different vowel sound. So again, like Jay was saying, whether we call this consonants or alliteration, they kind of blur together if it's only a line here or there. You know, this first example though, fall, from, far. If you've got 4 words like that close together, this is very clearly alliteration. If it's only 2 words in a line, again, whether we call that alliteration or consonants, it doesn't matter. The most important thing for us is recognizing when that's happening in the poem. Good. How about a couple more examples?
Oh, good.
Professor?
Yeah, Hiraway and then Jay. Hiraway, what's up?
Okay. third stanza, the first line.
Yep.
Though all fall.
Yes, I agree.
And fall.
Yeah, what's that? Consonants, alliteration, assonants.
I just recognized it.
I agree. Line 7 is assonance, right? All, I think all and fall really stands out to me. All, fall. Jay, what's up?
Can we consider like the first stanza, second line, like consonants with a distant gardens and heavens?
Distant gardens, heavens. So distant garden, heaven for consonants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think again, yeah, that makes sense to me. Distant gardens, heaven. And that's the N sound Jay was pointing out. Good. What else?
Also, first line on the last stanza, like
Yep.
all fall, another fall. Or could we consider it,
Line, is that line 3, Jay? I'm sorry. They
Uh,
fall?
stanza 3, first line,
All fall.
all fall.
Yeah, we got that one. We got that assonance. We got that one. What is going? Oh, I see. That's why. Cool. I also wanted to point out, this might be my native speaker brain, but
Can be.
oh, in the first stanza, we do have some assonance as well with distant, withered, lingering, we get this vowel sound, right? Like distant gardens withered in the heavens, they fall with slow and lingering descent. So we get this vowel sound here, li, right? Li. So another example of assonance in line 3 and 4. Well, how could I say this? Li. Oh, li. Good. What else?
Then it's just in the second stanza also assonance in, like and in the night and into the solitude.
Good. Yes. Yes. Good. Solitude. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good. 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 What else?
And I think we have in the second stanza there is a consonance. I do believe nights and stars.
Nights, stars, nights, stars, nights. The S sound at the end?
Yes.
Yeah, there are some S's in here, aren't there? Nights, falls, stars, solitude. Yeah, there are some S. There's definitely some S sounds in the second stanza. Good. Anybody else? Maybe one or two more. We got a lot. Again, you see how in a little, this is a small poem, 9 lines, but we already got a lot of stuff about the sounds going on here, right? Anybody else?
And we consider last stanza hold so.
But there is one who holds this falling infinitely softly in his hands. Which one holds and what else, Osama?
It's soft. Oh.
Holds soft.
Oh, oh.
Interesting. Yeah, I think the other thing that I'm noticing talking to you guys about this poem is there's not a special word for this, but this idea of whether this is consonants. Sometimes consonants looks like having 2 words. So it's not in this poem, right? But where a word ends with one sound and the next word begins with that sound. So holds. Oh, that's not a good example because holds actually ends with a Z sound. Lifts, something like this. Lifts softly, right? 2 S sounds. This ends with S and the next word begins with S. So I think if we want to call that consonants, Osama, we could definitely say that's an example of almost like holds, lifts softly, right? Word sounds that end and then a word begins with the next sound. Yes, Ahmad.
And the third stanza, the first line, we see thus, dot, and this.
Yes, good. I love that. Where we have the consonants with the ending with that final S sound.
That's right.
Yes, good.
Professor, so in the alliteration, you write in here, fall, from, far. This from is like, we could put it in the alliteration because from is a little not. So
remember, alliteration is the simplest, is the easiest of all these because it just means first sound of the word. So all that means is it's alliteration because fall, from, far. It's just about the first sound of each word. And when we have 4 words like that next to each other that all start with the same first sound, that's clearly alliteration.
But so if it's like this, you can put all they, that, that's all in this one.
Yeah, you could absolutely. So where do we see those words next to each other? Thus, this, there,
No, it's not next to each other, but in the most line as it started with the, they.
Yes, yes, but I'd say again with alliteration, there's two important things. One, same sound at the beginning of the word, and those words are close together in the same line, right? So that's an important idea to keep in mind as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jay, I'm going to type this note up, and then we'll talk about metaphor and simile. Yes, what's up?
So, Professor, you're saying like consonants is okay if like the sound maybe in the middle, like the beginning, middle, or end, as long as it's the same sound?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Can we also do that with like the first two lines of the last stanza, like the th sound?
Thus, this.
Doth.
Yeah, we definitely get that sound repeating in these first two lines. Thus all doth fall this, and we get ol and th. Thus all doth fall this hand of mine must fall and loathe the other one. Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. I think the answer is yes, Jay, as long as you understand that that's in there and that's important, and it doesn't feel quite as strong as something that's so obvious maybe as fall from far. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all in there, but how strong does it land on us when we read? I think that's something else to start to be aware of, if that makes sense. Cool. Okay, so we'll get to keep talking about sound more, but I want to make sure I talk about metaphor and simile. So we're going to look at, I promised you a rhyming poem, so I'm going to read the rhyming poem, and then we're going to talk about metaphor and simile. So we'll do the rhyming poem here. So this poem is called What the Heart of the Young Man Said to the Psalmist. And psalmist, again, for people, Psalms is a very famous book of poetry and songs from the Bible. So each psalm in the book of Psalms has this very specific structure going back, thousands and thousands of years. So just as an example, I don't want to do any of this. So if you go to, the Bible, this isn't a good example. I'll show you when we're looking at this. But all I wanted to say here is Psalms. This word psalm is a very specific idea about a specific type of poem that everybody at the time would have known in the West because this structure came from the Bible. Okay, so first I'm just going to read through the poem, listen to the sounds, and then we're going to start to talk about images and metaphor and simile in the poem. So this is by Henry Wordsworth Longfellow, What the Heart of the Young Man Said to the Psalmist. Tell me not, in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow find us farther than today. Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. In the world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present, heart within and God o'erhead. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, sailing o'er life's solemn main, a forlorn and shipwrecked brother, seeing, shall take heart again. Let us then be up and doing with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. So we'll get to talk about this poem a little bit more, but I do want to say real quickly, because metaphor and simile are really simple, I think, and they're in this poem all over. So a metaphor is a figure of speech that for rhetorical effect directly refers to one thing by another thing, often by using the verb is. So in the poem that I just read at the beginning, we get, tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers and things are not what they seem. Where's the metaphor in this stanza?
Is that the third line?
Good. So Ahmad found the is. Where's the other is?
And the second line.
Good. Okay, so which one's a metaphor? I'll tell you right now. Lines 1 and 2, there's lines 1 and 2 and lines 3 and 4. One of those has a metaphor, one does not. What's the metaphor?
The second one, the life.
Yes. Tell me. Does someone want to help Ahmad?
Can we do like first line?
That's
The
tell-
mournful,
Yeah.
mournful numbers is like age.
Yeah, numbers, I think numbers is just meant to be, yeah, about age, or really, I think the idea is the context here, the historical context for this poem was industrialization and and history changing around people, and this obsession with facts and science above religion. So there was this idea that don't just use numbers, don't just use the things you can touch and feel and try to say that there is no God, that God does not exist. So this mournful numbers is sort of talking about something in life at the time. But I'll just say the metaphor is here.
Yeah, life is.
Right? Life is a dream. That's not true, right? Life is life. But in this case, we're using the word is, and we're saying X is Y, right? Life is a dream. In this case, the author's saying, don't tell me life is a dream, right? But this is a metaphor when we say something is something else, right? Now, this is different than this line 3 here, where this is just using is to report an opinion or a feeling. For the soul is dead that slumbers. He's saying if a soul is not alive, if the soul is not awake, then obviously the poet has this feeling about that, right? But the metaphor here is that life is but an empty dream. So tell me not that life is but an empty dream. X is Y. And I could just send a link in the chat. So metaphor examples for kids, maybe these will be too easy, but whatever. Oh, good. Animal metaphors. The classroom was a zoo. Metaphor. Be verb, we're calling a classroom a zoo. The wind was a howling wolf. Ooh, very nice poetic sentence here, right? So a metaphor, in this case, we're saying wind is wolf. The thunder was a mighty lion. Thunder was lion. Nature metaphor. He is a shining star. He is a star. He is a star. I think metaphors are so common that we don't even recognize them, because every language all over the world, we need them. Humans really, really need metaphors. So that's all a metaphor is, saying X is Y. You with me? Jay and Usama are nodding. So, and a simile, I think, is also easy. Simile is just a figure of speech where that directly compares two things, but instead of saying is, poets will use the word like or as, right? So art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. Where's the simile here?
And the third line?
Good. And say it for me.
It says it's still like muffled drums that are
Good.
beating funeral.
Good.
To the grave.
And what is like a muffled drum? What is like a drum?
Stood, and they still.
Our heart.
Yes. Thank you, Ahmad, and thank you, Jay. Yes, so art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. So again, we get a lot of beautiful sort of poetic words around the simile, but our hearts like muffled drums. That's a simile, right? A metaphor is X is Y. A simile is X is like Y. That's it. That's the only difference. Make sense?
Also, the last sentence are beating funeral marches to the grave.
Yes.
Yes.
And what's that? Metaphor or simile?
Metaphor.
Good. I agree completely. Yes. Because of course our hearts are not really, making funeral marches. Our hearts don't get up and walk around, right? Absolutely. But in this case, we're using some of these images to, again, create a link between two things. And did I have anything else? That's it. That's all I wanted to say about metaphor and simile. Metaphor is when you say X is Y, and a simile is when you say X is like Y. That's it. That's the only thing we need to know. So I'll go back to, I'll ask another quick question here, and then I do want to make sure I talk about the poetry project because I won't see you guys for 2 weeks. So even without being able to read the words here, you guys, hold on. How many stanzas are in this poem that I just read? How many stanzas?
1, 2,
Is it 9?
9.
8, 9.
9.
That's it. And how many lines are in each stanza?
Okay, we have
4.
mostly 4 except the last one.
I cut it off. It is down
it's
here.
right down there.
Yeah. So so again, even after just 2 hours on Zoom, I hope that you feel confident enough to say, you know what? I can look at this poem and say, this poem has 9 stanzas of 4 lines each. That's enough. That's enough. And then we'll start to analyze what's going on in each structure and stuff like that. But even if you just understand that, that's great. That's great because again, it makes you aware of choices that poets are making when they're making their poems, right? That's why I talk about the structure so much here. I have a feeling what you will like to do and what most students like to do when they start to analyze poetry is this stuff because it's fun. And it's especially for language learners, it's a way to play with the sounds of English, which is really, really, really wonderful and really important. So we don't have Zoom next week because Wednesday is Veterans Day, but we will get to talk about poetry one more time 2 weeks from now. So I feel like I went through metaphor and simile very, very quickly. So if you're like, oh my God, Jeff, what's going on? I'll get to talk about this more next week. But I do want to show you the poetry project, and because I have to introduce it now, since we're running out of time. So I know we went through poetry quickly. I know I had to cancel class, and I know we have a holiday, and I know that I'm calling this a project, which means you guys will be stressed about the grades, and I understand. But please know that I understand where we're at in the semester, and it is not my expectation that you are an expert in this. And I kind of want you to think about this more as like a big lesson instead of like a big project, because I feel like it's rushed. So I know that and acknowledge that, and I don't want you to feel over stressed and overburdened. But here's what I want you to do with poetry. So
maybe you want us to feel this is an adventure.
I love it. Well, I'm already starting to think about next semester. I don't have time to talk about it right now, but there's just too many lessons. I think right now it's too much work for you guys. It's too much work for me to grade 20 lessons and 3 major projects. It's too much. It's way too much. So I think next spring I'm going to do fewer lessons and just fewer assignments, but more points for those assignments, because I'm still learning how to do this online thing, you guys. I love this. I love talking to poetry about you on Zoom, but so many assignments in Canvas, it's killer. It's killer. I hate it. So I don't know how you guys feel.
Me too.
And I know you guys have other classes too, so I don't know. Anyway, I know too many lessons, too much stuff. Okay, so here's the project. That's supposed to be fun. Don't stress. Oh my God. So here's what I want you to do. This is in Canvas, by the way. If you go to assignments, and if you go to poetry project, all the instructions are here. And this document that I'm looking at, you can access it on the page too. So here are the instructions. So for this writing assignment, I'm asking you to write about poetry. I'm also going to give you the opportunity to write poetry in English if you would like to do so. So you may choose either option A or option B. Here's option A. So option A, write 2 poems in English. The poems must be at least 12 lines long. If you have 1 word for each line, you're taking a risk, but I'll let you do it. I trust you and I love you. Then write 500 words analyzing each poem. So that's a total of 1,000 words. So 1 poem, 500 words, another poem, 500 words. You should analyze your own poems for any of the poetic elements that we've analyzed and that are in all of the River Speaks, including alliteration, consonants, assonance, line, caesura, enjambment, stanza, simile, or metaphor. Now, this is not a research essay, right? So you can treat this like a Canvas discussion. I don't really care about the structure of your writing here. I just want 2 paragraphs. Letty, take a breath, Letty, where you're just explaining what to do, Is 1,000 words too much? Should it be like 300 words each?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know how Letty feels. Jay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hiroe?
It's like two
Okay, yeah.
2 poems that we're gonna write, and then 500 words plus each.
Yeah, but this is 350. You get Cal State credit for this class. Let me think. I'm going to keep it 1,000. And if you're really scared out of your mind or you hate life, text me and we can negotiate. Okay. I'm going to keep it like 1,000 though. I hope that you'll want to write about your own poems. Like, anyway. So write 2 poems and then write 500 words about each poem, telling me what's going on in your poem, right? What sounds did you use? What images did you create? What metaphors did you write? That kind of thing. Option B, if you're like, oh my God, Jeff, I don't want to write my own poems. That's way too scary. I hate it. So then choose one of the poems in the ESL 350 poetry. So these poems. And first, write a 500-word response to the poem. So again, this is not analysis. It's just, what do you think about the poem? How did it make you feel? What do you think it means? This is very open, okay? This is very, very general. And then 1,000 words analyzing the poetic elements that we've studied. So alliteration, consonants, assonance, line, caesura, enjambment, stanza, simile, or metaphor. So I know it looks like a lot of words, but I've seen how many words you guys write so much. So really, I really want you to think of it as a chance to test out some of the things that we talked about the last 2 weeks, that you read about in the River Speaks. And as it's like you're in the poetry laboratory almost, you know what I mean? Experimenting with analyzing poems. I'm not judging you by, did Jay identify all of the alliteration? No, that's not what I care about. Hiroe, I see your hand. What's up?
Yes, the option B, a poetry document. So we are talking about only one poetry that you just showed us.
And here, not Hiroe, Jay was asking earlier if you could choose your own poem to analyze. Like I was thinking, if you wanted to analyze the translation of the poem that you chose, or if you wanted to analyze those 2 poems, again, like you can make this whatever you want, you guys. I'm really not, you can tell we're all tired and the world is horrible and life sucks and we're all just doing our best. So you can turn this into whatever you want. But again, because you get UC credit for this class, I want you to write a lot. I don't care if it's correct. I just do want you to push yourself and write, you know. It'll help you. It'll help you.
Sorry, Professor, just to verify.
Please,
so that
please.
means we can choose any poem, any poem.
So my plan was to choose one of the poems from this list, or if you find a poem online, this list is here in Canvas as well. That's this. ESLW.
Oh, there's one, more than one.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of poems. Some are translations. Some are originals in English. So you could do any of these poems, choose one and analyze. If there's a poem that you already know you like, you can analyze that one. If you want to talk about the poem you did for the lesson 17, that's fine with me too, Hiroe. That's fine with me too.
Thank you.
Of course. And grading, so like I said, just because of time, and I know it's short notice, forgive me, Jeff is sometimes not the most, Jeff's very passionate, but he's not very organized all the time. It's only 2 weeks, but I want you to do your best for the first draft in 2 weeks. Again, if you need more time, text me, email me, let's negotiate. But I want you to try and do this in the 2 weeks that we are apart, okay? And here's the grading rubric. Oops, this is 150. So 50 for the analysis, 50 for originality and effort, 25 for editing, grammar stuff, and 25 for length, for a total of 150. points. And I know I went very, very fast there at the end. So if you have to go, you're wonderful, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. If you want to stay and ask questions, please go for it. Jay, what's up?
So Professor, just clarifying, if we write our own poem, the 1,000 words or one paragraph or 500 of those is for the first one, analyzing the first poem, and then the second 500 is for the second poem.
That's my idea, because I think it'll make life easier. I don't want you to feel like you have to write 1,000 words about one of your own poems. But if you want to do it, if you want to break it up a different way, you can, Jay, but that is my idea.
Oh. And for our poems that we write, it's only just analysis with like the ones with the elements. But for the poetry or the poem that we choose that's written by someone else, is we have to do our response, and another half is just analysis.
Exactly correct. And that's the idea, right? I think option B is for my students who feel like they have time and they want to do a deep analysis and they can spend that time. Option A is for students who are more stressed and just want to focus. Like, it's risky, right? It might feel risky to try to write your own poem, but my reward for you, if you do that, is you don't have to write as much. But again, if you, and for people who aren't here, if you really want to practice doing poetic analysis, choose option B. If you're stressed and life sucks and you want to just try writing a poem and then notice the sounds that you use in your poem, do option A. Do you know what I mean? It's week 11 and I'm getting really honest with you guys now. I'm just being the most honest. Yes, Usama, what's up?
Can we work on the poem which we now work on?
Yes.
Yes. And are you going to this poem?
About this poem, the Wordsworth poem?
Yes, yes,
yeah.
Yes.
This poem is in Canvas, Osama. If you click ESLW 350, this document right here, that's this document. So this poem, if you like this one, From the Poet to the Psalmist, what the young man said to the psalmist, it's the last poem in this document. It's on page 6. It starts on page 6 in the document. So yes, you can absolutely choose this poem. I love this poem. It's one of my favorite poems in English. Other questions? Do your best. Come see me in student office hours, text me, email me, especially the weekends now. I was telling some of the students earlier, I'm in Stockton almost every weekend to see my family and my mom, but starting Tuesday through Friday, I'm here, I'm home. So if you have questions or need help with this, I'm here for you. Otherwise, just go for it. And I'm going to grade very gently. I know how good this class is. I know how hard you're working. And I know 1,000 words is a lot, but again, like, this is a writing class. And I promise you, writing 1,500 words in English, it makes you a better writer, even if it's not a research paper. So it will still help you, even if you're not happy about it. Other questions?
I would like to see you on campus on Friday to check my second draft of first article.
Yeah, I know. I'm so far behind you guys. This semester sucks. On Friday, I'm in the lab until, that's the other thing, is I'm doing 10 hours in the lab every week. It's just so much time. But I'm done in the lab at 1 o'clock on Friday. Can you meet? You want to meet on Friday after 1 o'clock?
Yes.
Let me, hold on. I'm going to put this in my calendar right now so I don't forget. And then before Friday, Osama, I'll send you an email so that I don't forget.
Okay.
1 o'clock, Osama.
Yes.
Okay. Give me some time to send you the link, but it's on my Google Calendar now, so I won't forget.
Okay.
Cool. What else? Other questions about this or anything?
Professor, your email is that email which is in the Canvas at the homepage.
Yes, and I saw, Fada, I saw your message.
Okay.
The midterm's open now, so go. I saw your document. Can you submit that document into the midterm assignment? You can do it now. I changed it today.
Okay, sure.
And again, You guys already know me. I'm not really worried about due dates and stuff. So whenever you guys can do it, the sooner the better, but whenever you can do it.
At that time, it was not open, unfortunately.
Yes, I know it shut down after the second, but today I changed that. I went into Canvas and changed it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And again, thank you all for your patience. I'm sorry I'm not as available on the weekend and on Monday when I'm in Stockton. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Father. That's it. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Professor.
Hoping to finish this in the
Osama.
yes,
Can you write your phone numbers to me in the chat, please?
yes,
In private chat.
yeah. I hope to finish from this.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Ahmad. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm glad
Thank
you
you,
feel better.
Professor.
Thank you.
If you, Professor, if you're waiting for us, I can email for Osama if you want to close the canvas. Oh, sure, he right. Yeah. Okay.
It's totally fine.
Yes, you got me, the professor, about the election.
Yeah, what did you say?
I hope to finish from this tragic events, this struggle, and this chaos.
Me too.
Situation in our community. Yes.
You said it perfectly, Osama. My dream is I just hope that we can not be so divided. And I say that and I pray and I'm hopeful. But it's scary right now, just how much anger and hatred there is in the country. It's really,
we have this, first of all, we need to dismantle this president. First of all.
Yeah, I agree.
Somebody has values, has respect.
I agree.
Self and to others.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. We have to start there. At the minimum, we have to start there. I agree. I agree. I agree.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor. Bye.
Thank you, Fada. See you guys.
Bye. Yes.
Osama, I'll see you on Friday, 1 o'clock.
Yes. Wish you happiness.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
You too, my friend. You too. Letty, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, Letty, I think you're gone. If you can hear me, I love you. Te quiero, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, Letty.